Hello, and welcome to the Escape Podcast, your source for all good things in the universe of movies. I'm Dave.
And I'm Josh. Join us as we explore the vast reaches of science fiction, fantasy, action-adventure, and beyond.
Beyond.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm good.
It's nice to see you again.
Likewise.
Thank you.
So yeah, Star Trek II is the movie we're talking about tonight.
The Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
The big one. But didn't you were you talking about...
Well, before we get to the movie, we can talk about some other things first. Like the new Star Trek TV show.
Is there anything new on that?
There was some news.
Oh.
So...
This is news to me, then.
Brian Fuller has completely departed from the project.
They gave a reason? Or have you heard a reason?
I think there was something... I think I heard something about creative differences.
Okay.
But,
Alright, very well. So what's the new news, then?
Well,
just him leaving, or...?
They've announced a character name, and I think it's pronounced Saru.
Okay.
Saru. I believe it's an alien character.
Okay, yeah.
And,
what kind of alien? Something we know, or...?
Something we've never seen before.
Okay.
And they've announced that, Klingons are going to be the big bad guys of the show.
Okay.
Because I think it takes place... 10 years prior to the original series.
Okay. So that would be right after Enterprise finishes, kind of, more or less?
Not right after, but it's going to be in the Prime universe,
that's
the original,
good,
and it's going to be, like I said, 10 years prior to the original series.
Too bad I'll never see it.
Well...
I'm not paying an extra thing just to watch one show that I may not even like.
Well, that's the thing about the pilot will be airing
Well, yeah,
on TV,
I could maybe watch that one episode, but I'm not gonna...
I'm of the persuasion where if I like it enough, I will pay, because I'm such a diehard fan of Star Trek.
Okay.
Like, the whole brand loyalty thing.
Yes.
So, if I like it, I'll pay just for that one show.
Alright, well, shall I start?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so, again, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan from 1982, was directed by Nicholas Meyer, who is known mostly for this one, but also time after time.
And he's on the new show as well.
Yes, Star Trek VI. He was also a writer for Star Trek IV, The Prince of Egypt, and Star Trek Discovery.
It has a score of 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. It stars William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy,
DeForest Kelley, and the rest of the original series crew, but it also has Christy Alley and Ricardo Montalban reprising this role as Khan from the original episode.
And I understand you have some trivia for us.
I do. I love my trivia. Meyer apparently took all the good ideas from various scripts and rewrote, combined the things that he liked all into one script. It took him 12 days. He did not take a writing credit for this. This is obviously, for those who know, but those who don't, this is a direct sequel to the original series episode, Space Seed, from Season 1, 1967.
Which I also watched that in preparation for this.
Okay, very good. Studio execs wanted the title to be The Revenge of Khan. But the problem was they knew at the time the last Star Wars movie was going to be Revenge of the Jedi.
At the time,
that was what it's going to be called. And they didn't want to have two movies with Star and Revenge in the title, so they changed it to Wrath of Khan. And kind of ironic, George Lucas later changed his mind and went from Revenge of the Jedi to Return of the Jedi.
Interesting.
Yes. Apparently they wanted to get Madeline Rue, if I'm pronouncing her name right, which is Lieutenant MacGyver's back, but she was in very poor health, apparently. But basically, she was unable to return. But anyway, Montalban at the time was doing Fantasy Island. He was the main guy in that, and he had some trouble getting back into character, so he asked to get a tape of Spacey, and apparently he had to watch it like 4 times before he found his spot again. I thought that's kind of interesting. Kirk and Khan never meet face-to-face in the movie due to Montalban's schedule with Fantasy Island. All their communication is done either over the view screen or through communicators. They're never in the same room together.
Interesting.
There's debate over whether or not Montalban's chest is real. Some people say that that he, being of the age he was, probably that was fake due to the fact that he's supposed to be a genetically engineered superhuman. To me, if you look at pictures and the video of him from Space Seed, you can see he was pretty built back then. I just kind of feel like he probably just kept up on himself pretty well.
Well, no, it was definitely him. Because there's a scene you can specifically see. He's on the view screen talking to Kirk about terms of surrender. And he moves his arm, and you see, like I never noticed it before recently, but you see, like, his pecs move.
Yeah.
Like, underneath his... And I was like, okay, that does not look like a prosthetic. That looks like the guy who hits the gym.
All right. Saavik was originally meant to be half Romulan, but none of those scenes made it into the movie, and that's apparently why she was so upset with Spock's death. The Genesis computer simulation was one of the first of its kind in a film, apparently. Pretty big deal, I guess, for them. I think that was by... I can't remember. Did they say it was Pixar?
The Genesis simulation?
Yeah, when they watched the video that shows, like, the terraforming.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I remember thinking how awesome that scene looked.
Yeah. I mean, it still holds up pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
Harv Bennett, I think he was producer. He watched every single original series episode to find a good villain, which, in his opinion, that is what he felt the reason why the motion picture failed.
Not Harry Mudd.
Yeah. He felt that's one of the big things that the motion picture was lacking, was a good villain, and he had no knowledge, no experience with Star Trek, never watched it before that. Many of Khan's men were Chippendales dancers.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird. They were con men.
Meyer...
So weird.
Yeah. Nicholas Meyer had Shatner do his lines over and over because apparently Shatner kept overselling it. He made it too big, especially the big scene.
No way.
Yeah.
Shatner overacting something?
Apparently the big scene, like where the prefix code, he was making it too obvious what he was going to do, and so he had to have him do his lines over and over and over until he just kind of got worn down. Kim Cattrall, who later plays Valeris in Star Trek VI, was the first choice to play Saavik. Most people know this is a big one. Chekhov was not in the episode Space Seed. In fact, he didn't come to, was it season 2? So in the movie, Khan says, I've never forgotten your face. And people will say, well, how could this be? Because Chekhov wasn't in the show. But the way I see it is, like, just because, like, okay, when you're watching a movie or a show and you're seeing something that happens on the bridge and then they cut to what's happening in engineering, does that mean everybody in the bridge just froze? Waiting for, clearly other things are happening on the ship while you're seeing what's happening on a certain spot. So I would just say Chekhov was probably on the ship. He was not a bridge officer yet. He probably was maybe security personnel or some kind of maintenance. He just could have been another position.
The first season without Chekhov, I always just took it to mean he wasn't a crew member yet, and he was probably brought on board.
Right, but how could Khan remember his face if he wasn't brought on board? That's why I'm saying he would had to been on board. He just wasn't a bridge officer yet. He was, like I said, he was maintenance. He was a security guard. He was some other position before he was promoted to a bridge officer, where some point Khan was doing something, maybe in the galley they were eating, and he met Chekhov. He saw him. They maybe had a quick conversation. Somehow he had to meet him.
Okay.
Originally, the title Nicholas Meyer wanted was going to be The Undiscovered Country, but
really,
yes,
for Star Trek 2.
For Star Trek 2, The Undiscovered Country, but Meyer didn't have enough pull at the time, and they wanted something a little more grabby. And he just kind of put it on the back burner. And obviously, when he got to Star Trek 6, he had a little more pull, and he used that title.
Nice.
Some of the motion picture shots were used to save money. Most notably, the
Enterprise
Klingon
launch.
ships. Well, yeah, the the Enterprise launch. Obviously, it's not as long. The Klingon ships for the Kobsyashi Maru, and I think there was just a few other like flyby shots that they did. This movie is 15 years for real and 15 years in the show. So from the time of the original series episode to the time the movie came out was 15 years, and within the context of the story of the movie, it was 15 years later, which I thought that was kind of cool that they.
And that's the way they've always done it, like in all the Star Treks. And all
Well, yeah, but I think this was the first to really do it. Because I think it wasn't supposed to be. I don't know if they said how many they used the real amount of years from the motion picture to the end of the show, or I don't even know if they even say.
Well,
anyway.
It's been about 10 years.
Right? Did they say that? I don't. What I'm getting at is they actually say it's 15 years. It's actually said 15 years ago I did this or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the first Trek to establish that it was the 23rd century. Nicholas Meyer claims he did that for his dad, so his dad could understand what he was watching. This apparently is the only movie to show a Federation ship fire phasers, or at least up until the point this information was made available.
Really?
Yeah. The Reliant was meant to be upside down from how it appeared in the movie. Apparently when it's supposed to be totally flipped over, and I guess what happened was when they sent him the blueprint of what the ship design they came up with, he signed off on it, and they saw that he must have looked at it upside down. He signed off on it. And so they literally went with how he signed it, because otherwise they would have made his signature upside down.
Interesting.
This is also one of the first times we see another Federation ship that doesn't look like the Enterprise. In the show, when they showed other Federation ships, it was basically just the Enterprise model because they couldn't produce another. So it was kind of cool to see that with, you can see how they fit in the same fleet, but it's totally
same
different.
Company.
Yeah. Roddenberry's ideal for a sequel to the motion picture had the Klingons using the Guardian of Forever to go back in time to stop Kennedy's assassination.
Oh, jeez.
Now, there's so many reasons why I think that doesn't sound good, but to me, it sounds, okay, why wouldn't the Klingons, if they could go back in time, why wouldn't they just take whatever their equivalent of a nuclear weapon is, go back in time and just set it anywhere, and just blow us up in our earlier years.
Yeah.
How does, sparing JFK help the Klingons do anything in the future? And furthermore,
I don't know.
Since it would almost seem more like you'd want it to be the Klingons went back in time to kill a certain historical figure, not save a historical figure. It's just really stupid.
That is dumb.
Yeah. Leonard Nimoy did not want to return. He apparently was done, and I guess it took the promise of the most unforgettable death scene in movie history is what they promised him he would have, and that's why he at the time was willing to come back. He had such a good time in retrospect on the movie that made him interested in coming back. But at the time, speaking of which, fans were apparently so angry because it leaked. And the way it leaked was Roddenberry, he was blamed for the failure of the motion picture because a lot of it was his kind of ideas, I guess. So he was basically, what do they call it, falling upwards or failing upwards, where they promote him to such a high position he has no ability to give a lot of say-so, or he can give his ideas, but they don't have to listen to him.
Right.
And I guess he knew that they were going to kill off Spock, and he didn't like this. So he had his assistant I think it was over in England somewhere, purposely spill it. Mm-hmm. And the fans were very upset and wrote a lot of letters to various production people about that. Some of the possible titles, besides the obvious Undiscovered Country and The Revenge of Khan, was Star Trek The Genesis Project, The War of the Generations, were some of the other possible titles for this movie. Some of the inspired books with themes of loss and revenge are Moby Dick, Paradise Lost, King Lear, which are visible on Khan's shelf, including Paradise Regained and the Holy Bible.
Yes.
And apparently Meyer told Montalban not to put it all out. Like basically when he was acting, keep it low. Because if you show your top, he said, you have nowhere to go. If you show your peak of your crazy or your wrath, no pun intended, your anger right off from the get-go, you can never top it.
It's old fast.
So basically, show this low simmering,
Yeah.
way. Also, this is the first time we hear the Vulcan language, and they actually were speaking English and then later had to come up with words and have them dub it over. But that was the first time we hear the Vulcan language. So that is the end of trivia, and I will let you start off with your thoughts.
They didn't have spoken audible Vulcan language in the episode of the original series.
I don't think so. I think it was just they were speaking English.
And they fight and all that.
Yeah. I don't think there's any
unlock time.
Yeah.
So, I thought they had it on there. But
I don't think so.
Okay. So the Kobsyashi Maru
Yes.
is fantastic. The Kobsyashi Maru scene, you see Kirstie Alley in the captain's chair doing her thing, trying to do the test. But it's funny because they talk about Captain Kirk having changed the conditions of the test in order to pass it.
Well, you find out he's the only one to have ever beaten it, but they don't reveal why right away.
Right, but
yes.
All these years, we've kind of always, like, for me, I've always wondered what that would have looked like. Like, I always tried to picture it in my head, Captain Kirk taking that test, and just from the mention of it in Star Trek 2. And so then in Star Trek, I guess it would be Star Trek 11, the first Chris Pine movie.
Yeah.
You finally get to see, like, even though it's the alternate timeline, but it's still like a young Cadet Kirk taking the Kobsyashi Maru test, and he beats it because he changed it and he downloaded, like, he cheated. He downloaded the thing so that he could beat the
Yeah, he changed the conditions where it was possible
Yeah.
to rescue the ship.
So I thought that was cool. And also, so there's that version of the Kobsyashi Maru. So there's the Wrath of Khan version where we see Kirstie Alley. They talk about Kirk doing it when he was a cadet. Then we see the cadet version in the Chris Pine movie from 2009.
Yeah.
And then there's the Starfleet Academy PC computer game
Okay.
version, which is also, it's like, it puts you... It's really cool. Like,
allows you to play as Kirk?
Well, no, not as Kirk, but you get to take the Kobsyashi Maru test. And they have the Kobsyashi Maru, and you get destroyed every time because there's no way to win it. It's so fun.
So it's just like a mini game or something within it?
Well, the game is the Starfleet Academy game, but there was like one...
Right, but it's like a mini game.
One part of the game is playing the Kobsyashi Maru.
Oh, okay.
And so there's that. This movie is the first time we see the red uniforms.
Yes, that is
And
one of my talking points, too.
I am a huge fan of that uniform. I think if I was to ever get into, like, heavy, drop some big cabbage for cosplay type thing,
Okay.
I would get one of those uniforms. I love that uniform so much. I love it.
I know we talked about this with the motion picture, and I know the picture's up on Facebook for those who want to see. I kind of think maybe they still should have kept the color scheme with this design, because it does kind of get, in a way, it's a lot of red, and you can't really tell who's in what position.
Yeah, I agree
because
with that.
in the original series, at least, and the Next Generation, of course, you can tell kind of who's in what position to a degree by the color they wear. In this, you can't so much. But they're great uniforms. They took a lot of inspiration from the Navy. This is also the first time in Star Trek that they kind of established that Starfleet is not so much an extension of NASA, but more like an extension of the Navy, which makes sense. I mean, you're in a ship, you're in an ocean of space, Space
Navy.
Yeah, essentially. And that's actually another, it's make a more military feel. I guess even some of the insignia on the wrist of the uniforms was very much inspired by the Navy, and they were talking about how they actually took symbols and basically made a chart and decided, okay, if a captain looks like this is what the first officer looks like. This is what his insignia will look like. This is what, a cadet. This
on the shoulder strap.
Well, on the wrist too. They in the shoulders too, but there's also things on the wrist that kind of also...
The shoulder straps is where the official rank is.
Then I must be remembering. But isn't there something on the wrist too? Or is that just in the original series?
The wrist, well, on the red uniform...
Yeah.
On the red uniform, it's the right wrist that has nothing on it. There's just a red sleeve there.
Okay.
On the other wrist, the sleeve has different, I think there's different insignias, and there's commendations and like different things you've been awarded and you've won over the years, and like there's like little markings here and there, but there's no official rank of like captain.
Okay.
But that's what's on the shoulder strap. That's where the rank is.
Okay.
Like, and the captain looks a little more elongated, but the admiral is smaller. And when Captain Kirk was Admiral Kirk and he got bumped back to captain, he went back to wearing that shoulder logo on the strap.
So
and I've memorized all.
I see that.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not so much that I don't know. I became familiarized with it as a teenager, and it just never left me.
Yeah, that's fine.
I never forgot it ever since. I don't know why.
So this is not going to be a popular thing, but I'm going to say it anyway. I feel like this movie, especially over Star Wars, is more. It's like more of a grown-up movie. It's more of a grown-up sci-fi movie. There's so much more meatier topics and
it's deeper.
Yes,
I
and
agree.
one of those things I wanted to make mention of is the themes of growing old, the desire to stay young, and relive your glory days. There's a lot of
death.
Well, yeah, there's that, but I mean, just talking about like Kirk, the way he.
Facing death is at least as important as how we face life. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. But like I'm talking about specifically like earlier when McCoy is like, you shouldn't have accepted promotion. You need to get back in control of your.
And then Spock said the same thing to him later.
Yes. Basically, it was a mistake of you to accept promotion, and you need to get back out there before you really do grow old. There's that. There's when Kirk meets his son, who, basically they have no relationship with each other, and he talking about how he feels old and worn out, and there's just a lot of themes to that, having your past come back the way he now runs back into Khan again, and Khan is obviously trying to take revenge on him. Like, all these things are coming up. He's,
Yes.
I guess I think that's what made this movie also work really well is you had an episode to go off. You had an episode that established who these characters were.
Which is funny because for me, I saw this movie before I saw the episode of the original series that it was a sequel to.
But they give you enough information about the episode to you don't have to watch it. But
yeah, and I remember watching this movie with my dad, and my dad was like, this is a sequel to an actual episode.
Yeah.
And he told me to go watch it, and then I went to I remember I went to a local movie rental store, and they happened to be renting tape episodes of the original series out, and so I rented it.
Which, it's funny because now a lot of movies do that where, like, for instance, like the Marvel movies will have tie-ins with the Marvel TV shows and vice versa. Certain things will carry over. And
actually, the Marvel movies do not acknowledge
they don't?
Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Luke
I
Cage
stand
or any of
corrected.
that. But the shows will acknowledge the events of the movies.
Okay. Well, regardless, anyway, I think this had to have been one of the first, if not the first, movie or franchise to do that, where they use something from a show to continue on to a movie.
Right.
But again, regarding themes of revenge, Khan is so driven for Kirk that he totally, he kills his whole crew essentially. He gets so blinded by what he's trying to do there. He drive for revenge. He ultimately, he kills all his people and himself just after one guy.
And, it's funny, by the way, Khan's men and him, when I was younger, I didn't really put these things together in my head watching this movie, but I always thought on the surface of SETI Alpha 5, they were in, whatever was left of the Botany Bay. But apparently it wasn't. It was a Starfleet cargo container that they were living in.
Who said that?
Well, it's...
See, I always
Khan
took it as
nothing
they were in the cargo bay of the Botany Bay.
No, because in the original series episode, they discard their own ship, the Botany Bay.
Oh.
They discard it, and they take the Enterprise over. And they leave the Botany Bay.
Yeah, but he could find it. If once Kirk was ready to banish him, he could
but here's the
go
thing.
back and tractor beam it.
In this movie, you see the word Starfleet.
Oh, really?
stamped on the walls of the inside of this cargo bay container area.
Okay.
So
So it was a Starfleet cargo
So
bay
that
container.
thing that said the Botany Bay on it, it must have just been some kind of relic, something.
Well, it looked like a seatbelt buckle.
some kind of something from the Botany Bay that they kept with them. But because the inside of that
Well,
thing,
again, they still could have. When Kirk banished him, he could have still went back, found it, and tractor beamed it, and just gave it to him so he had something to
he
live
could
in.
have, but this was a Starfleet issue cargo bay container, like a large cargo box.
Maybe he did both.
And it's
Maybe he gave him a Starfleet thing and he gave him his ship. I don't know. So, speaking of the cargo bay, I know really why. It's just to advance the story. The story would have ended too quickly, but once Chekhov realizes where he's at and that he's on the wrong planet and he's the Botany Bay Khan and all that stuff, he's like in a rush to get out. Why go back outside? Why not just quickly pull out your communicator and be like, "Hey, beam us up
very same
now"?
thing, but I thought maybe it might have something to do with them not being able to beam out.
A cargo bay, but
I don't
episodes
know.
show they beam within walls of things.
I kind of figured they just must need to be outdoors in order for a successful beam out. But yeah.
So here's one I wonder: was Khan born normal, then enhanced, like Captain America, or was he created in a lab? Like did they?
No. He was definitely in like the original episode. They talk about how he was an enhanced.
Yeah, but
human.
I mean, was he enhanced from
was
his birth, like in when they took an egg, an embryo, or whatever in a test tube and did it, or was he born normally? Then they like injected him like Captain America to give him these special.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
I
mean, they never say. I'm just curious.
I always just took it as he was enhanced after he was,
So he was born normal,
like an
and
adult.
then enhanced.
Yeah.
Okay. I
That's
don't know.
what I always took it to mean.
Right.
but-
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer because they never said.
Right.
So there's this guy I work with who's not really a Star Trek fan, but he was telling me in his British literature class that his teacher used Star Trek 2 as an example of the perfect story arc and had the class actually watch it as an example. I thought that was pretty cool.
I always thought it was kind of weird how Kirstie Alley
Yeah.
has one earring on. Did you notice that?
I have not. I've never
in
noticed
this
that.
movie. I don't know if it's through the whole movie, but I noticed in a scene or two,
Yeah.
she only had one earring on one ear. And
I'd have to watch for that. I don't
know
remember
what
that
that
at
was
all.
all about. Like, is that, Vulcans... The whole thing about Kirstie Alley as a Vulcan is so strange to me because she doesn't have typical Vulcan presence. Like,
What do you mean?
like the short hair and she cries at the end of the movie. And,
You know what's funny is I never noticed her cry. I've heard people talk about her cry, but I've never really noticed
it's right
it.
there.
Is it?
It's a big old bunch
Well,
of tears come down.
Some people have said they think that, because Romulans, Vulcans do have emotions. They
Yeah.
just choose
Right.
not to,
Exactly.
whatever. Some people said, well, maybe it's because she was just so upset about Spock that it broke her discipline.
I see.
But then, of course, as I said in the trivia, I guess she was originally intended to be half Romulan, who they
Which
do
that
not.
would make sense. Yeah.
Right.
I thought it was nice to see Commander Kyle back again.
I guess I never. Who was he? A bridge officer? I guess.
He was in the original series a ton.
Oh.
And he came back for this movie
Oh.
he was on the bridge of the Reliant.
Yes,
as
I
a
remember.
bridge-
I remember
as a
the
bridge
name, and I
officer.
remember the guy.
But he was in various episodes of
Okay.
the original series as that same character,
Huh. Okay.
serving on the Enterprise. So
Interesting.
yeah.
This movie does a real good job with like a real sense of consequences. Like typically in the original series, it was very happy ending. Everything pretty much works out well
Yeah.
for our heroes.
Yes.
And even the Next Generation did that for a while until they until Gene was not able to, because Gene had a lot of control over that show. But this movie, I think, really it has a main character dying. At the time, you had no idea he was going to come back. Kirk has to face that kind of loss. It's really, like I said, it's more of a mature, grown-up movie.
Right.
In that way, there's real consequences to actions, real loss. just heavier things.
Yeah, it's funny. A little bit of humor here. The scene where Kirk is trying to ask Dr. Marcus, "Who's taking Genesis?"
Yes.
That scene, and then Uhura comes on and says, "Transmission jammed at the source, sir."
Okay.
I laugh every
Why?
time because in Spaceballs,
Oh, the jam thing.
the jam and like the grape jelly coming
Yeah.
out of like the seeping out of the machine.
The monitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now every time I see something about a transmission being jammed, I think back to Spaceballs, and it makes me laugh
Yeah. Okay.
significantly.
So what do you think about the music? Obviously,
It's
it's different
the
from
same
the
composer,
motion
isn't
picture.
it?
Jerry Goldsmith did the motion picture, and James Horner did the Wrath of Khan.
But
It's
I
different
enjoyed
music.
it.
What do you think?
I mean, I always liked it.
I don't dislike it, but I do, because I liked the motion pictures theme so
Yeah.
much. I kind of wish somewhere it could have been worked in.
Yeah.
To me, it's just kind of a shame that it was lost.
I will say this though: the Star Trek movies, the music tend to vary from movie to movie.
Yes.
But,
In fact, the motion picture theme wasn't used again until Star Trek V.
right, and then again, they used a little bit. Well, I mean, for the Next Generation movies,
Yes.
but
'Cause that
I was
became
gonna
their main theme. Sped up, of course.
The music for Star Trek 4.
That sounds like
Maybe-
Christmas music to me.
It's
I've
the
always
worst-
thought it sounds like a Christmas
It's the
movie.
worst Star Trek score I've ever heard.
I agree.
It does sound like Christmas music, like ho ho ho, ding 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 ding. Ding.
Yes.
It's like it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So
Yeah. You could definitely take scenes from like a Christmas
like,
Carol or
like
any
you
like
could just take it like from Ernest Saves Christmas and put like clips of that music in the background of it, and it would fit.
yeah, I can definitely see like a village covered in snow and just whatever. But yeah, I just kind of wish somehow they could have maybe had the motion pictures theme music, which was great.
Yes.
In this, because it was such like I said last time when we talked about that, I feel like the motion picture theme is almost like just the Star Trek theme.
It's-
like you
it's
could
the
put
standard,
any
the gold standard.
clips of various Star Trek episodes or movies to that music, and like that's sums it up. Like that's the Star Trek theme, and I kind of wish it would have not been totally forgotten for
Right.
this movie. But I don't know. So intelligence over experience. They're always talking about how Khan is extremely intelligent, but yet what I find really cool is, despite all that, it doesn't outweigh Kirk's experience.
Right.
In the nebula, the Matara Nebula, is how you say it?
The Mutara.
Thank you. Basically, Spock says something to the effect of like he's extremely intelligent, but he shows two-dimensional thinking, and that's when Kirk orders the ship. Which I think that's the first. You ever notice when in Star Trek, or actually not just Star Trek, any two ships of any sci-fi, they always approach each other and they always happen to be right side up.
Yeah, oriented the
Like,
same plane.
because in in the same level, like you never see like, oh, one ship's way up here, one's way down here,
Yeah.
or this ship's coming in upside down, and
Yeah.
they rotate to be kind of eye to eye.
Yeah.
Or even sideways. They're always just on the same plane, right side up to each other.
Right.
And this movie a little bit kind of shows what you can do with a space movie where, the whole up and down aspect of it, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, up and down, left and right kind of become irrelevant in space.
right, and that brings me to another point I want to talk about, just the nebula scene. They took a lot of inspiration from submarine movies, because it very much has a submarine type feel to.
Well, that's funny you should say that,
Yeah.
because the nebula scene was filmed in water.
Yeah, they used a tank with
It was a
different.
big old water tank,
Right.
and so naturally you're going to feel submerged in those scenes.
Right, but I'm saying the fact that, like, with a submarine, they're using the pings to find out where their enemy is, basically, because in the nebula, they basically, what they say, weapons lock won't work, sensors didn't work, and the view screen was really fuzzy.
Yeah.
So basically, you only would get quick glimpses of where the other
Right.
ship was or where you are, and there was actually even scenes where they almost hit each other
Yeah.
because they're basically flying blind, and I thought that was a really cool thing to do. It was definitely different for its time,
Right.
cutting edge kind of thing, to
Yeah. Speaking of cutting edge effects, I will say this: the warp speed special effects much improved in this movie.
yeah, it kind of went to that rainbow.
The rainbow thing was gone.
Yes.
The rainbow thing from the first movie, terrible.
Yeah. It
So
was
glad
pretty
they
bad.
got rid of that for
Yeah.
this. And
I think that's the
overall-
only bad thing about the first movie.
Whoa.
That's a
hey,
joke. That was a
hey-o.
joke. That was a joke.
That movie is something else. That's
Yeah.
anyway.
Not to
so,
rehash, but I do think it's not as bad as people claim. It's not my favorite, but it's not as bad as I think some people make it out to be.
The scene where Kirk and Spock are kind of talking about, like, where the Spock says it would. Kirk says, "I would not presume to debate you," and Spock says,
wise.
"That would be wise."
Yeah.
There's like a little humor there. Like,
Oh yeah,
I love
this.
it.
This movie did so much better with people being people. Like,
Yeah.
even though it's the future and it's this really far-fetched circumstance or whatever, that people are still people, and that's one of the things I like so much about Star Trek as a whole is that they are still within our real world, just the future. So they constantly reference things of the past, things that are our past, and I like how people act like people. There's this joke, and there was a real thing. People talk about the what they call it, the Star Trek triad: Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. How Kirk's the cowboy. He's the one that's gung ho, ready to run in, hit on the girls, all that kind of stuff. He's the adventurer guy. Spock is the very, well, obviously logical, but very, let's think about this. Let's, ask questions, shoot later if need be. And McCoy's kind of the hybrid. He
You
can
mean
be.
shoot first, ask questions.
Did I say it backwards? Well, wait. No, because Spock wants to more ask questions and shoot later if
Oh,
need
I
be,
see
where
what you're
Kirk's
saying.
a little more
Yeah.
shoot now, ask questions later. And then Bones is kind of a hybrid.
Yeah, he's kind of in the middle.
He's kind of in the middle. He can be very passionate about certain things and kind of fly off the handle, but
Really, Dr. McCoy, you
Yes.
should really learn to govern your passions.
right. But anyway, you got that back in this movie because the motion picture didn't have much with it. It had a few small things
Yeah.
where you see that kind of dynamic, and mostly I'd say with Kirk and Bones, not so much with Spock in that the triad, but it's back in this movie, and that's again one of the things I think made it so great because it was relatable. You can see either yourself and the various dynamics of the characters or people it was relatable. Yes.
The sets on this movie are great. The set design,
Well,
I love it. One thing I really didn't like too much though were those dang seats on the bridge of the Enterprise.
what about them?
They look like they're made from like giant seashells or something. Like they have like the lines that burst from the center, and it looks like seashells from the beach. And I just never really liked it too much.
I see.
But yeah.
I guess I guess they could have had a better design, but I'm not too worried about that. But I gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about some deleted scenes. There's a few deleted scenes you can see if you watch the director's cut. Only one of which I actually like. Most of the deleted scenes I think are terrible. Do you have any opinions on this?
I'm not really familiar enough with what scenes are
Oh, okay.
deleted, and
All right.
I'm not
Well,
familiar.
what version of the movie do you watch?
Theatrical.
Okay, so then you probably not really even seen these deleted scenes. Okay, there are several deleted scenes that did not make it into the theatrical cut, but if you watch the director's cut, they're there. One of them I like, most of them I don't. So let me talk about that.
Okay.
There's one deleted scene that explains who Cadet Prescott is. Do you remember the guy, the kid that Scotty brings to the bridge after they've been attacked and he's all burned up and stuff? Okay.
Yes.
Have you ever wondered why Scotty was so upset about this one specific person?
Yeah, I think I saw something about there was like a Scotty's nephew or something.
Yes, there's a deleted scene that explains that he is Scotty's sister's kid, obviously his nephew, and that he was very upset, obviously,
Right.
that he got killed, rightfully so. Well, it kind of doesn't
Which
make
I always
sense.
wondered, why didn't he just take him to sick bay?
I wondered that too. Maybe if he thought Bones was on the bridge because of damage up there. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's more for just the big reveal,
Right.
like of But yeah. However, there is a really stupid deleted scene between Kirk and Bones that doesn't make sense. Okay, when Bones comes to Kirk's apartment, you see tons of antiques.
Mm-hmm.
There's muskets on the wall. There's a suit of armor.
Mm-hmm.
There's like wooden modeled ship things.
Yeah.
Various things
Yeah.
that show that Kirk is into antiques, which is funny if you relate it back to court martial episode of the original series where Kirk is accused of making a bad decision. And what's funny is his lawyer has all these books lying around. And Kirk even says, like, oh, why don't you use the, whatever computer because it can hold all these books together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't say this, but you kind of almost think that because that guy was like, well, I like books. He had the computer, but he didn't use it. And what's kind of cool is you can now say that maybe that guy is the one who inspired Kirk at that young age still to start appreciating books.
Yes.
And therefore appreciating other things, older things, because Kirk just actually even got a book for his birthday, which the movie opens on Kirk's birthday. He got a leather-bound book. I think it was A Tale of Two Cities. He was the specific book I want to say he got from Spock as a gift. Well, when Bones comes to his apartment...
No, it was the Once and Future King, I believe.
Okay, I'm sorry. Regardless, but it's a leather-bound paper book. And again, Kirk likes older things. So when you get to Kirk's apartment, you see all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Bones gives him a gift, which happens to be eyeglasses. In the deleted scene, which again makes no sense, Kirk pulls them out and he goes, "Oh, thank you." And he's looking at him. He goes, "What is it?" And then Bones goes, "They're for your eyes." Now, there's two reasons why I think this is stupid. One is because, again, Kirk clearly knows about older things.
Yeah.
He wouldn't recognize and know what eyeglasses were. I think that's stupid.
That was a Gene Roddenberry thing anyway.
Well,
That no one wears glasses in the future.
yeah, I guess.
And I remember how in the episode, the pilot episode of the series, the Cage.
Yes.
They had a scene real quick where they show a transporter assistant rather. He was one of the guys standing next to the main chief.
Yeah.
And he's got glasses on, thick-rimmed 1960s glasses.
Yeah.
He didn't mean. I think it was a mistake. He was supposed to take them off, but they kept it on there.
Uh-huh.
Then they cut to something, but then when they cut back to this guy, the glasses were gone.
Mm.
And they were like, "Yeah, in the future, no one's got glasses." So.
Well, anyway. Also, I was thinking, okay, there are certain things that we don't use nowadays, but when you see them, you know what they are. And even if Kirk wasn't so much of about antiques, I kind of found it weird that he wouldn't still know what glasses were.
Right.
Anyway, this scene is in the director's cut, and it's so stupid, especially while they're standing in his apartment surrounded by all this old stuff that he says, "What is it?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was not worth it.
I always thought it was funny that when they had the scene where they beam to Regular One, and there's a rat walking around.
Yeah, I
Like,
could feel you on
Regular
that.
One
Like,
has
how in the
rats?
world? Like, okay, clearly
It is a lab.
somehow it got.
It's a
Yeah, well, yeah, it's
floating
supposed to be a
lab,
sterile
so maybe
environment.
it's a lab rat.
Hey, maybe it is. There's another deleted scene between. Well, it's got Kirk, Spock, and Bones, but most of the dialogue is between Spock and Bones, and it's about the Genesis device, and basically that whole thing about what if this was used somewhere where life already exists, that whole thing. But the problem with it goes on and on between Spock and Bones, and it really just doesn't add anything extra to it. The theatrical cut, where it's a little shorter.
Redundant.
It's to the point. Yes, the added scenes don't add much.
Yeah, I enjoy the theatrical version.
Again, except for the scene that explains who Cadet Prescott is to Scotty and why he was so much more upset. That's the only scene I wish there was like an ultimate cut or something that just added that one thing in, left everything else out. But
so now is Khan's wife, as he refers to her?
Everyone assumes
Marla
that's MacGyver's. Yeah. In the original series episode, there was one female crewman of the Enterprise who helped Khan take over the ship. Yeah. Her name was MacGyver's, and in the end of the episode, when Kirk basically, instead of court-martialing him, he basically lets him have a planet to rule, which is awfully generous since he tried to kill him and take over his ship. MacGyver's chooses to go with Khan, and yes, she, like I said, they wanted to have her come back, but the actress was in very bad health, so she couldn't come back.
I wonder what that's all about.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the comm watches that Chekhov and the other guy was wearing.
Terrell.
Yeah, they kind of look like oversized Apple watches. I don't know if you noticed that.
Well, those were in the motion picture too, I think. In fact, they don't have the flip communicators in the motion picture. They just use the wristwatch communicators. Do you remember that, or?
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, I mean, but you can make the argument there's many things that were science fiction, true science fiction in Star Trek that are not real. I mean, you got Google glasses, holograms, virtual reality, the way you can talk to technology.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech today that Star Trek predicted before they were actually invented.
Things that can tell you information about almost anything. I mean, there's lots of stuff.
Yeah, I've even seen things at hospitals where you'll have like a thing of vital signs.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I used to work at a hospital.
Yeah. The giant water tank nebula, the Mizar Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
That scene worked so well that they actually used that footage of that nebula.
Okay.
On The Next Generation.
Oh really?
And they had an episode where the Enterprise D was in a nebula, and it was It wasn't the same. It wasn't supposed to be the same, but it was supposed to.
Right, they just used the same footage.
Nebula like it.
Yeah.
And also, I think they did the same thing on DS9.
Huh. Well, Star Trek, throughout the years, it's pretty interesting how they did things to save money. They saved costumes, props, certain sets, and reused things as much as possible to save money, or just altered it slightly to look different. Obviously, like I said, they even use motion picture shots to, make certain shots in this movie work. But yeah.
So I was kind of wondered though, like at the end of the movie,
yeah,
they had this scene where Khan is like limping across the way to get to where he's trying to get.
Yes.
And his arm is all like contorted and folded up. Like, what is that?
Well,
I guess you could say his arm is contorted.
Okay. All right.
I made that one up.
Did you just do that just to say that?
No, I made that up.
Yeah, I mean, that thing fell when they got shot. The thing from the ceiling.
Yeah, but like it looks like something that you see on someone who's having a stroke. Or because I've seen this.
I mean, his face was also burnt up, so clearly he had bad injury at that point. Did you ever hear about the Khan baby?
No.
You can find a picture of this. I guess this should have been trivia, but forgive me. There was originally going to be Khan and MacGyver's had a child, and remember how he kept the Genesis torpedo in his the Reliance transporter room?
Yeah.
There's a shot. I guess I don't know if they filmed it, but you can find this screenshot of it where there's a child, a baby, crawling toward it as it's lighting up when he's activating it. Anyway, but they cut it. They cut the baby out, but you can find pictures of the Khan baby.
So it would have been killed.
Well, yeah, too. So yeah, basically that's another person he sacrificed.
Interesting.
the prefix code scene, I think, is really cool.
It is
the
very,
idea
it's
that
very
if you're...
I wish they would have done that in any other part of the Star Trek universe. Because I don't think they
I thought they did.
have.
I thought they did. But anyway, I think it's pretty cool that the idea that basically when one of your fleet's ships is commandeered by an enemy, that you can send a command from your ship to order the enemy ship now to lower its shields. And what's really cool is when, I remember I thought I'd never seen anything like that. It was the way he was having Spock look up the code, and he was basically...
Not as if I'm still giving orders.
Yeah, and all that stuff.
That whole scene is great.
And then basically has Reliant drop its shield so that he can fire upon it. It just was really cool because Khan obviously thought he caught him and had him, cornered. I thought that was a really clever, cool scene.
So here's something I always wondered about.
Lay it on me.
So the device, the Genesis device.
Yes.
It was originally designed to be used on, quote, a moon or other dead form.
Mm-hmm.
But when it detonated, it wasn't being used on a moon or other dead form.
Well,
it just kind of made a body.
No. The way I took it is, do you remember... And I thought about this too. Do you remember as they were zipping away from it and you see the wave just keep expanding?
It's making a planet.
No. I took it as, do you remember Regula 1, the space station where the rat was? It was orbiting a moon. I always took it as basically, as that shockwave kept going out, eventually it hit that moon and it terraformed it.
Really?
That's how I take it. Well, like I said, it can't just...
Right.
Because if they could just detonate it in empty space, they could...
We're kind of assuming and speculating, like, this is a huge plot point that they said earlier in the same movie.
Yeah.
It's got to be, basically shot at a dead moon.
Well, maybe that's part of the reason why that planet failed.
And
because it wasn't literally shot on the planet.
It's not a planet maker.
Well, like I said, I don't think it made a planet, because if it made a planet, they would never... That would make no sense why they were searching for a lifeless planet in the first place. They could just shot it out in open space and now we have a planet. But to me, it makes more sense that moon that was right near the border of the nebula is what eventually got hit by the shockwave or whatever. And again, maybe that's why the Genesis planet failed in the next movie. Because it wasn't directly impacted. It was kind of, it was like tainted almost. That would be my guess. It's just pulling stuff out of the air. But it's a good point. I have thought about too. Like, where did this planet come from? And that's what I came up with.
There's some great lines in this movie, but
Let's hear him.
The Dr. McCoy.
Let's hear him.
The line Dr. McCoy says, "Are you out of your Vulcan mind?"
Yeah.
I love it. It's like one of the best things ever. And they even had Dr. McCoy say that again in I think one of the movies of the new reboot series. They had him say that exactly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you know that apparently they wanted DeForest Kelley to say his big line, "He's dead, Jim," but Kelly thought
would have been insensitive.
Yeah, that it was basically too heavy of a circumstance that just wouldn't have worked.
Everyone knows he's dead, Jim.
Right. But I did want to talk about some of the great lines of the movie. Obviously, we have the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, the one. One of my personal favorite, the by the book code talk.
Oh, that was
if hours seemed as days.
That was great.
I love that one. I like to use that one as much as possible. I have been and always shall be your friend. And here's another one. He tasked me, and I shall have him. I'll chase him round the moons of nebula and round the Antares maelstrom and round perdition's flames before I give him up. But I really love that was actually another point I'm glad it came up. The code talk when basically Kirk and Spock have to talk to each other over radio, and they're assuming that Khan is probably listening in, and rightfully so, because he was, and they use this code, which it's funny because it seems obvious. Like, it seemed like anyone pick up on it, but somebody I knew, I can't remember, and they didn't notice it.
Yeah.
But basically, they use this code word that lets them know I can't quite be playing with you, so you got to kind of read between the lines on this. But it was really a cool setup.
So the movie ends with the bagpipes playing Amazing Grace.
Yes, Scotty
And,
plays the bagpipes.
I think it's funny how many movies have done this, where there's been a significant death of a main character, and you hear bagpipe rendition of Amazing Grace.
It sounds great on bagpipes.
It does. The first movie that came to mind that also does this is Batman vs Superman.
I don't even remember that.
When Superman dies at the end, they play Amazing Grace on bagpipes. There have been countless others. I've heard others. I just at the moment I can't remember what other movies, but I've seen it and I've heard it multiple times. And it's a great plot device, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It gets the idea across.
I never noticed this before, but you notice until someone else pointed out that during the Kobsyashi Maru scene, the neutral zone is portrayed as a round area of space. Did you notice that? On the computer screen, when they show the neutral zone, it's like this round kind of space, which doesn't make sense. Like, you'd think it would just be a straight line separating this area of space from that area. I just thought that was kind of worth mentioning. I thought it was a little weird that it's a round ball.
They showed a map of the neutral zone in the original series too, and it
was just a line.
In the episode of I can't remember the name.
But
of
was
it.
Was it
Encounter the Romulans?
Okay, but that was the Romulan neutral zone. This was
the Klingon neutral zone.
Is there a difference? Is there a Klingon neutral zone and then there's a Romulan neutral zone?
Yeah.
Or was it a separation between all of them, like, or something?
No, they're different. I think they're different zones.
Okay, so then I guess that really wouldn't apply because that was showing
Right.
the Romulan neutral zone. This was the Klingon neutral zone.
Right.
But yeah, I just think it's weird that it's round. That would be this round, like the Klingons totally shut themselves in on the other side. Like, I don't know, but anyway, so when they're approaching the Reliant, which they don't know at the time, but it's commandeered by an enemy.
Right.
And they try to talk to them, and Reliant won't answer. And Savick says, regulations say when you're approaching a ship, even if it's one of our own, and it's no communications, you should basically raise shields. And Kirk chooses to not.
Right.
He basically kind of sealed their fates. I mean, Prescott got killed, and many other people got killed. The ship is heavy damaged. Several people are injured, and it makes me think, like, well, whatever happened to all that experience and wisdom that he supposedly had from all those years to do something so stupid and foolish and risk the lives of his people?
I don't know.
Right, I'm just saying, like, it seems
I never thought about
very
that.
silly that it'd be one thing if they said, oh, the Reliant, that's Captain Terrell's ship. He's an old friend of mine. I've known him since the academy. We're cool. We don't worry about the shields. But, like, all he knew was, this is another one of my fleet's ships. He didn't even seem like he was in good or knew the specific captain. Right. And for him, but, like, I don't know. I just thought it was really kind of strange that he would just risk it like that. And obviously it didn't work out well for him.
Right.
I just thought that was kind of interesting. So, do you think the Wrath of Khan still holds up pretty well? Do you think it's dated at all? Or is there any...
I think it's slightly dated.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say it's fine.
What dates it to you? Anything specific?
I don't know if it's any one specific thing. I think it's just accumulation of a bunch of little subtle things.
But nothing you can specifically
that
pull out your hat?
When they come together into one assessment, they all scream early 80s. But as far as one specific thing over another or anything that I could point out, I don't really know what it would be that I could point out.
You ever realize that aside from Savick and Spock and the City Alpha Eel, there's really no aliens in this movie. There's nothing like really, most Star Trek movies will have some kind of alien crew member walking around the
That's
back
strange.
or somewhere, something.
Yeah.
And again, that's also not including the fact that you see Klingon battle cruisers, but you don't actually see a Klingon. But yeah, there's no other really like aliens in this movie. I like I said, this movie is incredible. It's one of those movies, I think, even if you're not a Star Trek fan, this is just a great sci-fi movie that you can watch and enjoy. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I kind of somewhat defended the motion picture, but this is truly a far superior film.
Yes.
But
I agree.
How would you letter grade it?
I give it a B.
A B?
Yeah.
Really? Why a B?
I just give it a B.
Okay.
I can't really. It's just a general. Just when I think about this movie in a sort of passive, generalized way.
Yeah.
I think it's not the best movie.
Really?
It's not terrible.
Wow. Really?
So
you almost acting like is it just okay?
Yeah, I give it a B. Maybe a B plus.
Really?
At most.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, to me, this is a A movie.
Yeah.
Wow, that really surprises me that you. It just almost sounds like you just think it's like an okay film.
I like it. I like it, but I don't know. There are other Star Trek movies that I like way more. It's not my favorite Star Trek movie.
No, it's not mine either.
I would say
but...
it may be. I don't know. It'd be in the top 5 though.
Really?
Yeah.
But what about, how about this? Of just the original series movies?
Just of the original series.
How about that, yeah?
It ranks number 2. My favorite all-time original series cast movie is Star Trek 6.
Okay.
And then Star Trek 2 is number 2.
Okay. So you give it a B?
Maybe a B plus.
Okay. I give it an A. I think this is one you definitely should check out, even if you're not a Star Trek fan. I don't think if you want to watch the episode, you can, but you don't have to. They explain it well enough. You don't have to know much about Star Trek. You can watch it. You don't have to watch the episode unless you want.
No,
but
you don't need to. I didn't.
It gives you enough information about what happened in that episode to carry you along, but services the fans very well.
Yeah.
That have followed these characters for however many years. An A, definitely an A. It is not my number 1 favorite. It is also my number 2 favorite of the original series movies, but definitely up there. It's incredible. So, thank you all for listening.
Yes.
And if you'd like to email us, you can get a hold of us at escapepodcast16@gmail.com and on facebook.com/escapepodcast16.
Yep.
We're also on Podomatic.
It's true.
And iTunes.
It's all true. It's all true.
All right.
All of that stuff.
All right, Dave. Well, let's close it out so you can go to sleep.
Us, subscribe to us, and leave us a review if you feel so led.
Thank you. That would be great. We would appreciate that very much.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Live long and prosper.
Indeed. Explain it well enough to... Oh my goodness. What was that?
What? What
I
did I do? What? What happened? What?
Wow.
What happened? What happened? What happened?
What was that? Oh my goodness. I was going to try and take a picture. Oh my goodness.
What was I doing?
Oh my goodness.
I'm so tired.
Kobsyashi. As I was saying, this is a...
We're going to be doing a lot of editing here.
Yes, that's okay. This will be the hidden track. This is a great movie. You don't have to know much about Star Trek. You don't have to. It's a great movie.